It is crossover Thursday, Locked On Chargers, Locked On Colts, and a battle between two teams who are pretty banged up, and whoever can come out on top will be atop of the AFC.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into a very special Locked On crossover episode, one we don't get to see very often, Locked On Chargers and Locked On Colts. I'm your host, Daniel Wade of the Locked On Chargers podcast, and we also have Zach Hicks here from the Locked On Colts podcast. Very exciting time for both teams who find themselves near the top of the AFC, but thank you as always for making us your first listen. To make sure you never miss the show, go follow or subscribe for free on the Locked On Chargers and Locked On Colts YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. And we have a big one. The winner of this game will be the number one team in the AFC record-wise. I mean, the Colts are the last of the one-loss teams. Chargers undefeated in the conference. The Colts undefeated in the conference, both undefeated in their own divisions for now. And this is a big one. Chargers luckily at home for this game, somehow favored for this game, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. But Zach, what's up, man? Got to be a very, very exciting time for you.
Oh yeah, very exciting. I mean, who would have thought the Colts would be at 5-1? Who would have thought you guys would be at your record with the injuries you've gone through as well? So we're both riding highs right now into this game, and hopefully, well, at least on my side, hopefully we continue riding our high, and you guys have to rebound after that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I didn't think when the Chargers, when I saw the schedule that I didn't know if it would be an easy game per se, especially with Jonathan Taylor and the worries I've always had about their run defense. But I didn't think they'd be playing the number one team in the AFC when Week 7 rolled around. But Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. I know the Chargers' injuries have been well, listed, and there's so many of them, so many important players. But the Colts kind of have, on the defensive side of the ball especially, have their own injury issues. And, as the Chargers are on tackles 5 and 6 last week, the Colts are on corners, 7, 8, 9, whatever the case may be. But going into this matchup, Zach, what do you think would you say is the biggest story for the Colts going in?
Yeah, it's just health right now is the biggest thing for the Colts. If I had to give an auxiliary one, it's can the Colts offense keep it up on the road at the dominance they've done at home. But right now, it really is the health. I mean, the Colts are coming into this game, like you mentioned, down 7th, 8th, 9th corners. I mean, we got guys like Jonathan Edwards, Chris Lamons, and Mekhi Blackmon likely to start at corner in this game. And I want Chargers fans listening, heck, even Colts fans listening, to tell me if you've heard those names before I just mentioned, before I mentioned them here. So the Colts cornerback room is in dire straits. They've had a lot of turnover at linebacker as well. They do have Jermaine Pratt and Zaire Franklin now, but they've already cut 2 guys who were linebacker 2 and 3 coming into the year because of their play. And then on the offense side of the ball, it looks like Josh Downs might not be playing this week as well with concussion. So potentially down Josh Downs. Charvarius Ward, the best overall player on our defense, probably doesn't play this week. A couple other guys missing too for the Colts. Their kicker was knocked out for the year 2 weeks ago, and we'll see if that ever comes back to bite them. So maybe it's not as dire as the Chargers, where the Chargers have the CVS receipt of injuries right now, and they're down to, I think I'm going to go try out for the Chargers tackle position after we get off the show here. But, it is pretty banged up team right now. Kind of the state of the NFL usually come week 6, week 7, week 8 is everyone's banged up, and you just got to find a way to win despite that.
Yeah, and I mean, to the Chargers' credit, at least last week they were able to do that, right? I mean, they played a bad team, but the injuries are the ultimate equalizer, and it was a close game for that purpose. And I mean, I think for the Chargers, especially with their offensive line, something that was always going to be kind of under the microscope anyways going into the season. Now you lose, your best tackle in Rashawn Slater. Now your all-pro kind of level left tackle over the first 3 weeks. Joe Alt goes down with a high ankle sprain. He did not practice on Wednesday. His status, I would say, is very much in doubt. I would be surprised if Joe Alt or even Trey Pipkins would play. Those are your second and third best tackles for the Chargers. Obviously, the Colts are missing, several cornerbacks, because if Kenny Moore was playing, if Charvarius Ward was playing, that's a different team. Like that's not something that is easily as exploitable. But now I think what the story for this game is, at least on that side for each team, is just like, can the Chargers keep Justin Herbert upright long enough to take advantage of that, because you're right. I had only heard of Mekhi Blackman from scouting him at USC a couple years ago. Outside of that, I've never heard of those other guys, which I don't think many Colts fans have probably heard of, Austin Deculus, maybe just because was in the AFC South, but he was not a starter for a bad Texans offensive line. And then Bobby Hart basically was on the street the last couple of years. They could get Jamari Sawyer back to play probably right tackle. I wouldn't say that's like a huge boost or something that's going to change the trajectory. Right now, it's looking like the Chargers, once again, are going to have a very quick style of offense and really try to game plan around what they're missing. And that's been what it is, which is just a limited offense. Like that's, if you want to keep Justin Herbert healthy, you kind of have to run the offense a certain way when you're missing those guys. I'd say the biggest thing here, Zach, is the ability for Khalil Mack to come back. They just activated his window. He's missed 4 games with a dislocated elbow and just kind of a freak injury against his former team in the Raiders. Denzel Perryman, who is a very physical run defender with liabilities and coverage, I'm almost positive he's going to be back this week. Full participant in the last 2 practices last week, full participant on Wednesday this week. That will be an impact player for the Chargers, especially getting Jonathan Taylor and a very physical team coming to town. It's not the Khalil Mack impact, though. And for most players, coming back that first week where you activate the window and it's like, okay, we'll get his feet wet, but we're probably not going to play him. You can't guarantee that with Khalil Mack. And I think why that's so important for this matchup is because where have the Chargers been getting killed? On the edge. It's keeping contained. It's not having that super physical edge setter. And like you look at the Commanders, 2 untouched touchdowns rushing on the ground, just running to the left side, getting outside, and nobody's there. And another couple last week where you have big chunk plays. If Khalil Mack can play, not that it fixes the Chargers' run defense, but the last 3 weeks, the Chargers have given up at least 137 yards on the ground, 3 weeks in a row, and 2 of those games were over 160. The kind of common denominator there, Khalil Mack's been gone. So I think that is kind of the one injury hanging over this game where it's like, man, if he could come back, not that the Chargers shut down the Colts rushing attack by any means, but maybe they don't get pummeled by it, and I think that would be huge.
Yeah, no, I think that you're 100% there. That's the most important injury to watch this week because, look, Downs and Ward likely aren't going to play. We don't really have to monitor those. Joe Alt's probably not going to play. We don't have to monitor that. But Khalil Mack will be the big one to watch throughout the week because this Colts rushing attack has killed teams this year. Jonathan Taylor leads the NFL in rushing. Last week alone against the Arizona Cardinals, who were a pretty good run defense coming into that game, the Colts averaged nearly 8 yards per carry running to the left side of the defense behind Quentin Nelson pulling out in front, Tanner Bordellini, the young center, finding his way, Bernhard Raimann, a highly paid left tackle, doing some great things. For all the injuries the Colts have had, their offensive line is very healthy, and Quentin Nelson's playing the best football of his Hall of Fame career right now, which is scary to say. So if you're not going to have Khalil Mack, you got to be prepared for Quentin Nelson leading the way in front of Jonathan Taylor there on that left side. And it could be a lot for your defense. So that, and also the Colts have only allowed 5 sacks through 6 games so far. Daniel Jones has the lowest pressure to sack ratio in the NFL among all quarterbacks. So Khalil Mack not only is the run defender, but just getting some pressure on Daniel Jones. Pressure creates problems for offenses. The Colts' lone game this year where they haven't scored, over 29 points in this game this year has come against the Los Angeles Rams when Jared Verse and Byron Young completely decimated the Colts offensive line. So if you want to beat this Colts offense, you got to get pressure up front. Getting a Khalil Mack would be huge for the Chargers, but if you don't have him and your run defense suffers and you're not able to rush the passer, this Colts offense that is averaging almost 33 points per game is going to be able to get theirs on that side of the ball.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it does feel like a game the Chargers are going to have to put up 30, truly offensively. And I do think that you're right. It is a double-edged sword. Like, you get him back for that edge setting containment type of play, but you also get him as a pass rusher. And not only that, you could, for the first time this year, unleash your trio of pass rushers and have 3 guys you feel pretty good about after the Odafe Owe trade. You have Tuli Tuipulotu. Now you have Odafe Owe. It's good to have those guys because you have 2 capable edge defenders. It's a lot different when Khalil Mack's back. And now you have a trio of guys that were, even if some guys, need a spell, have to get off the field for a few snaps, you have someone that's able to get in there and be able to hold the line and hold their end of the rope. And I think that pass rush wise, run defense wise, they're equally important because, that's the thing about the Colts. They're about middle of the pack as far as team pressure allowed. The difference has been, to your point, Daniel Jones being able to really limit how many of those pressures turn into sacks And kind of an underrated storyline for the Chargers this year has been the inability to get those kind of quarterbacks on the ground. So I think that is a big one, but it's not the biggest matchup of the game. And we do have to get into that because for me, it's this Chargers wide receiver trio versus the defensive backs, the no-name defensive backs, maybe I should say, that the Colts are running out there right now. So we're going to get into all that and more on today's Locked On crossover episode. First, though, I need to tell everyone about Mint Mobile, something I'm very excited about. Mint Mobile is awesome, and if you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making a switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. There's really just no reason to be paying $100 a month. I have many friends that pay that much, but Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number in contacts. It's hassle-free. I love that you're getting the same quality service that you had before, but for a fraction of the price, and the setup is super easy. You kept your number, and then you're running in minutes. And I think there's just a notion out there that companies like Mint can't give you the type of service that maybe some of the big dogs can. That is just not the case anymore. So ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Upfront payments of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for more details. I also need to tell you guys about BILT because nobody likes paying rent. But if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where BILT comes in. BILT is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards that you can actually use. When you pay rent through BILT, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But BILT isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood because that's where you can cash in these points. And that's one of the most terrible things about renting somewhere, right? You're basically throwing that money away. It's not really going towards anything. It's not going to where you earning something. This is actually something tangible that you can earn with the money that you're already spending on rent. Whether I'm grabbing food or at my favorite local restaurant or heading to the gym, I'm still earning rewards because BILT has made everyday life feel more rewarding. From your neighborhood to your travel plans, turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use that link so they know we sent you. All right, Zach, well, we still have to get into the biggest matchups from this one, and I do think there's some really good ones. I talked about one of mine, which is just the Chargers wide receiver trio versus the banged-up cornerbacks that we already talked about, because the Chargers are in a weird position where, to me, Ladd McConkey is the most talented of the Chargers receiver. He's the most polished. He's the most kind of wide receiver one as far as a guy who can come in and week out. That's not how the first month of the season started. Somehow, kind of miraculously, it's been Quentin Johnston, who is the number one wide receiver for this team and leading this team in receiving yards. And then last week, he had to miss. Ladd McConkey ends up going for 100 yards, the first 100-yard game of the season. He's starting to warm up a little bit, had the game-winning catch that set up the game-winning field goal last week. But there's three really talented, kind of equal guys where it's not like you have one guy that you have to focus in on. It's like, okay, well, if we take Quentin Johnston away, we're going to win this game defensively, right? No, I mean, you have three guys, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, and Ladd McConkey, that all have over 300 receiving yards this season. I think the only receiver that has over 300 yards for the Colts is Tyler Warren, I believe, the last time I checked. So it is kind of a different thing. They've had multiple games where all three guys are getting up, around 60 to 70 receiving yards. They use all three of them. And that, I think, will be one of the matchups that decides this. The Chargers obviously have to keep Justin Herbert upright. If they do, without, Xavier Howard, who retired randomly, without Kenny Moore, without Charvarius Ward, that is a huge benefit to the Chargers.
Yeah, without Justin Wally as well, the rookie corner that was going to start for them prior to the season before they had to go to Xavier Howard, right. Without Juju Brents, without Sam Womack, who got cut. Man. Yeah, it's a lot of guys that they're down at corner. But I do love this Chargers wide receiver room. They have a lot of guys who just do different things. And it would have been fascinating to see what the Colts would have done with Charvarius Ward if he played in this game, because they have had him shadowing top receivers when he's played. Yeah. And sometimes it's been interesting how they've done it. Like against the Rams, they had him shadowing Devontae Adams, and they tried to bracket Puka Nacua. Now that didn't work because Puka Nacua is going for 200 yards a game, but that's their plan of attack there. So I wonder how they would have done it if Charvarius Ward were to play this week. But because they don't have that corner, they're not going to bracket anybody. They're just going to play their type of game, probably give these guys a little bit of help over the top, maybe a little bit more too high. But a big thing with Lou Anarumo is he likes to play press man coverage. The Colts have a 30% man coverage rate this year, even with the injuries at corner. And they just want to be competitive with these receivers at the point of attack with a safety over the top and a 5-man rush on those third downs or second and long situations. So we can kind of segue this into the other huge matchup is, can this Chargers offensive line protect Justin Herbert, and can the Colts pass rush, which has been a bit lackluster at times, sometimes really good, sometimes really bad, can they get pressure on Justin Herbert? Now, again, this Colts pass rush has been so hot and cold. We go back to the Rams game against Matthew Stafford, and for most of that game, the Colts were harassing him, held the Rams to 5 of 14 on third down. That was a road game in LA, much like this upcoming weekend. Leatu Latu had multiple QB hits in that one, and it looked like this Colts pass rush was finding a way. Then the Cardinals came out with this beautiful adjustment to the Colts where it was, Jacoby Brissett's not this playmaker in the backfield. We know he's just going to sit back and throw it.
Sure.
We're going to do max protect. We're going to do 6 offensive linemen on the field, plus 12 personnel, plus 11 personnel. And we're going to have 7 blockers back there. And the Colts with Lou Anarumo don't like to blitz very often. Like, they have mixed in some blitzes here and there. They show a lot of pressure and they bail out of it. So they were basically blocking 4 guys with 6 or 7 and just daring the Colts 10th string corners to cover, and daring the Colts linebackers to cover, who aren't very good cover linebackers. So it'll be really interesting to see if the Chargers attack the same way, because I think if they do something similar to that, come out in 12, 13 personnel and throw the ball out of it, there are great matchups, because I don't know how the Colts are going to cover Ladd McConkey for 3 seconds.
Sure.
He's too good of a wide receiver. Quentin Johnson for 3 seconds. Even if you put 2 guys on him, I don't know if the Colts have the capabilities to cover that. So it'll come down to this Colts pass rush, especially on early down blitzes when the Chargers are under center. I think will be a big thing, trying to create those negative splash plays that they really live on. But yeah, it'll be a huge matchup. I think that'll really decide this game. Colts pass rush versus Chargers O-line, and then Chargers wide receivers versus Colts corners. Whichever one gets the edge there will probably decide the game on Sunday.
I totally agree with you. And that's the thing, for Colts fans to realize is also, like, the Chargers offensive line has basically been a get right game for, every defensive front that they've gone up against. And to the Chargers, I don't even know if it's credit, because it's hard to give a ton of credit there, but like, they've gone up against some monsters, right? Like, this isn't going to be the best defensive front that they've gone up against this season. Like, they've already gone up against the Broncos, as the Colts saw, and that's just, total murderer's row over there. They went up against the Giants and kind of ignited that pass rush with, 3 edge rushers and Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, right? They faced some really, really tough matchups. The Colts are a little bit different, where maybe they don't have that one guy that's just, the guy all the time. But I think I read they have 5 different guys that have 10 pressures. So it can come from different places. I'm glad you brought that up, though, because the Chargers did go to a lot of that last week, where it was a lot of max protection. It's get a fullback, get a couple of tight ends out there and try to throw out of it. And there was one time, they blocked 3 guys with 6 guys and, immediately gave up a pressure that totally blew it up. So doesn't mean it's always going to work, but I do expect some of that. One, I think that's just kind of a fun matchup on the other side, though. Derwin James and Deion Henley versus Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren, one of the pipe dream prospects that we talked about a lot on Locked On Chargers, where it's like, hey, maybe the league isn't as high on this guy. Maybe he drops down into the 20s, and like, I'm taking him in a heartbeat. And he's totally lived up to the hype. He leads all Colts receivers by 77 receiving yards. He's been a focal point of the offense. We know how kind of well-rounded he is and kind of what he brings to the table. So far, though, this year, the Chargers have allowed, on average, under 4 catches and less than 33 yards per game to tight ends. And they've gone up against Darren Waller and Brock Bowers and some better tight ends, too. So I think Travis Kelce, if you still kind of put him in that tier. But last year, Deion Henley, Derwin James were kind of known as tight end stoppers. We'll see what they have this week for the rookie phenom, Tyler Warren.
Yeah, and one big thing I'll say about the Colts, and you made a great point where it's like the Chargers have 3 receivers with over 300 yards. Well, if you look at the Colts, they've had almost a different leading receiver every single week because they've just been going to the well of different guys. Even A.D. Mitchell and Ashton Doolin have games with over 50 yards receiving. A.D. Mitchell has almost 100 in that Rams game that he dropped the ball at the 1 yard line. And he's been in the doghouse ever since.
I was going to say, is he still in the doghouse? Because that was brutal. I mean, for those who don't know, the Colts should absolutely be undefeated. I mean, they got a little help in that Broncos game, but a drop ball ahead of the goal line and also a hold on a 53-yard Jonathan Taylor touchdown is pretty much the only reason they didn't beat the Rams.
Yeah, and Mekhi Blackman falling down in press man coverage, allowing the game-winning touchdown.
That doesn't help either.
It was awful. But to be real quick here, the Colts offense is like outside of Jonathan Taylor in the second half, which we'll talk about more in the final segment.
Yeah,
they are just. It's all about the parts. It's all about the pieces. It's not about one guy. So if a team wants to come out and say you're not throwing to Tyler Warren today, the Colts will be fine. It's like, yeah, cool. We'll throw to Michael Pittman Jr. We'll throw a deep ball to Alec Pierce. I mean, no Josh Downs this week, unfortunately, but like we'll throw it to Jonathan Taylor, who has on pace to break all of his receiving yardage totals in single season. The Colts have been really good at spreading the ball around. That's why they don't have many guys with 300 plus yards. I don't think they're going to have a 1,000-yard receiver this year, and unless Warren hits that, but they'll have a ton of guys in that 700-800. Yeah, it's really just an offense where they spread the ball around so much. So, a big part of their recent game plans too have been feeding Tyler Warren on the first drive, getting the fear of God in defenses on that first drive with Tyler Warren, and then maybe 1 or 2 catches the rest of the game. Because once you put all your attention on that tight end, it opens up so many other guys on the offense. So, if it takes Derwin James away from other guys, I think the Colts will be fine with doing that on Sunday. But Tyler Warren is a huge part of the offense, and even if he doesn't catch 10 balls, fantastic run blocker.
Yeah, I mean, and there's not many of those coming out of college. I mean, we watch guys every year. That's a pretty rare thing for college tight ends these days. But yeah, the Chargers are like that in a lot of ways too, right? I mean, they have 3 receivers over 300 yards and no receiver over 500 yards or anyone, just getting astronomically big numbers or anything like that. But those are the best matchups, but those aren't going to be necessarily what the keys to victory are for each of these teams. So we're going to get in all that and more in today's Locked On Crossover Special. First, I need to tell you guys about Mazda, because Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all of the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. And I think for this matchup, whatever team has the attention to detail, whatever team doesn't make the mistakes, which is going to be something huge for both of these teams, is going to be the team that wins. But Mazda does pay attention to that. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Nappa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, well, it's time to get into the nitty-gritty here, Zach. Of course, it is Locked On Chargers, Locked On Colts crossover episode here. I'm Daniel Wade, host of Locked On Chargers, and I'm here with Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, as the Colts everydayers know already. But there are several things I think the Chargers have to do. I mean, some of them are going to have to run into tomorrow's episode, because I think the Colts maybe are the best team in the AFC and arguably have been one of the best teams in the NFL. I think the Chargers are going to have to play a pretty flawless game in a lot of aspects. But thank you, as always, to the everydayers for making us your first listen. We appreciate all of you guys from both shows. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out Locked On NFL, because they're putting out 2 shows a day with Tyler the Madman rolling in the morning and my guy Tony Wiggins in the barbershop later on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. But let's get into it. 3 different things that are going to decide this game. I am the host, Chargers hosting in SoFi, so I'll be polite and allow you to go first. Zach, what do you think are the 3 keys for the Colts to pull this thing off?
Well, I appreciate the kindness there. We love some Midwestern hospitality here, and it's a big part of it here. But yeah, I think the most important thing, and I think Chargers fans will probably laugh at this, is the one thing that can beat the Chargers on every single Sunday is a little thing called the Chargers. The Chargers are great at beating themselves on Sundays. He knows. I know. I still live in the DC area. I watched the Commanders game against the Chargers. And great example of how the Chargers can beat themselves. And I think the key anytime you play against the Chargers is make them the team that beats themselves. Don't beat yourself against them, because they will have these games every year where they just forget how to play football. They fumble the ball. They throw interceptions. They get these terrible penalties. So I think that's always the key when you play against the Chargers, is don't be the one that gives them the game. Like, let them give you the game.
Let them beat themselves. Sure.
Right. Going to the next one, though, the Colts have held this philosophy all season long of pass to score, run to win. So for that to be successful, like it has been pretty much every single week, you have to be able to throw the ball early to set up that late game run. And I've held maintain this stance on the Colts all year, where if they have a lead in the second half, good luck beating them, because you're going to get the Jonathan Taylor treatment the rest of that third and fourth quarter. And it's hard to get him on the ground this year. He is just running extremely well. Only 6% of his rushes have gone for negative yards. He has been excellent at pushing the ball forward and keeping the Colts on pace. So the Colts got to throw the ball early, open up the things for the run game. And then especially if Khalil Mack's not playing, just feed Jonathan Taylor after you get that lead. That'll be the big part there. And the last one is, look, this is a road game for the Colts. They rely heavily on pre-snap motion, play action, and moving things around and muddying those looks for defenses before the snap. Don't get those pre-snap penalties. Don't fall into that trap that teams fall into in the road environment, where you get knocked off schedule, knocked into 1st and 15, 2nd and 15, 2nd and 20. Avoid those pre-snap mistakes. Avoid the holdings. Avoid the crowd noise disrupting what you do. Stay on pace. Put up your 30-something points you've done every week, and you'll have a good chance to beat anybody, even with your 10th-string corners. So those are my big keys for the Colts. One, win the turnover battle. Let the Chargers beat themselves. That's always going to be a key against the Chargers. 2, pass to score, run to win, get that lead out of the half, and let Jonathan Taylor run you to victory. And 3, it kind of goes to the don't beat yourself, but avoid the pre-snap penalties. Avoid those things that knock your offense back so you could stay on track and get points on the board.
Yeah, it's hard to, I mean, if the Colts can do all those things, they will win this game. And it'll be up to the Chargers to a certain extent to get them out of that, right? Because I do think there are some similar keys. Like, the Chargers need to get off to a fast start. And that is my first key here, because the Chargers won last week because the game script allowed it to a certain extent, right? If they get down and have to throw to get back into the game and leave their offensive lineman in that situation, it's not going to be good. Chargers were good last week, put up 29 points. Everything was going pretty well for their offense until that last drive. And I'm sure you saw the play that won them the game. But the 2 plays they had was Justin Herbert getting absolutely crunched because the other team knows he's passing the football and getting rid of the football. And the other one was him avoiding getting crunched and then finding Ladd McConkey for what ended up being the game-winning reception, right? So the Chargers have to get off fast. They can't afford to be trailing this Colts team and letting them run the ball down their throat. If the Chargers can go into the fourth quarter with the 10-point lead, right, that's a lot harder to let Jonathan Taylor just batter you and batter you and batter you for the rest of that game. So that's going to be huge. And also, to your point, you can't Charger. Also, it would be great not to turn the ball over early. We're talking about 4 straight games for the Chargers, to your point, where they have not just a turnover. 3 of those games, they have multiple, but 4 straight games with a first half turnover. And you said it. You watched the Commanders game. That game changed dramatically when Quentin Johnston fumbled. They didn't score again after that, right? But then you have the punt return touchdown that wasn't because of the ref and the kicker. They can beat themselves, and they can't do that in this game, or they're just not going to get a chance. And more than that, they could get blown out. Number 2 for me, don't get dominated in the trenches. If you let the Colts push you around defensively, Jonathan Taylor is going to go for 200 yards in this game. A Jim Harbaugh team who pride themselves in physicality, haven't always been that this year, they cannot be physically bullied in this game, or it's just going to be a long day. And on the flip side of that, the Chargers have to give Justin Herbert a chance. We talked about it in the biggest matchups. You have to find some semblance of a running game as well. You have to be balanced. You have to protect your offensive line like you did last week. Like I talked about earlier, Colts have 5 players with at least 10 pressures, top 10 in total pressures, but 19th in team pressure percentage. So this isn't necessarily the dominant force that the Chargers have seen in some of these last weeks, right? Biggest one to me here, mostly because of how bad they've been here, have to come through in the red zone, especially against this team on both sides of it. Like, this game, Zach, could easily be decided by which team decides to settle for field goals in the red zone and which team can score those touchdowns. The Colts have scored 10 straight trips into the red zone. They have gotten touchdowns, and that's just the last 2 weeks, which is insane and honestly probably shouldn't be allowed. But that's not the point. The Chargers have to be a lot better themselves. When you have Justin Herbert, when you have the weapons they have, there's no reason you should be the worst team at scoring touchdowns in the red zone in the entire NFL. They only score touchdowns 35% of the time. Some of that's the lack of aggressiveness from Jim Harbaugh, which I think has to be kind of ratcheted up if you want to beat a team who's better than you right now. That's where it has to come from. Ladd McConkey, back-to-back weeks getting in the end zone. Quentin Johnson, their leading touchdown getter, should be back this week, almost certainly back this week. If the Chargers can stop the Colts a couple of times in the red zone, make them settle for 3 with a kicker, right? That's a new kicker. It'll give them a chance. And I think that's all you can do in this game. Give yourself a chance, because I think the Colts are the better team. If they can get off to a fast start, if they can just not get dominated, they don't even have to win in the trenches. It just has to be close. Don't get dominated in the trenches. Have to come through in the red zone. If they do, Zach, they'll have a chance.
Yeah, that's a great final point here, and I really want to reiterate that is the red zone offense versus defense will be massive in this game. If you actually look at these two teams on offense, their points per game, the Colts are averaging nearly 33 points per game. The Chargers around 21 points per game.
Yeah.
But similar on offense, similar in terms of total offense and all the yardage here. So these teams,
one team's just putting it into the end zone and one's not. Yeah.
And it always takes 1 week just to get back on track. The Colts were in the bottom 5 in red zone offense going into that game against the Raiders.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
5 straight trips where they converted in the red zone there, and then 5 against the Cardinals. Got their last 10 to punch it into the end zone to bump up to 10th in the NFL now in red zone offense. So it only takes just 1 week to get it back on track for the Colts. Make sure that's not this week for the Chargers offense, and make sure that you're continuing what you've been doing. The Colts offense has been great at, they struggled early in the year at just between the 10 and 20 yard line, getting it within the 10, getting from that high red to the low red. But recently they have just punched it down close. And when they get within that 5 yard line, it's Taylor, it's Tyler Warren, it's Daniel Jones sneaking it. It's hard to keep them out of the end zone. So for the Colts offense to keep up that play that they've had in the red zone, just keep punching it within the 10, and then do the Jim Harbaugh thing, play some bully ball. That's the biggest thing here for the Colts this year. They played bully ball.
Yeah, or you could not. The Colts could not play bully ball. It wouldn't be a lot of fun for me. But let's be honest, man. Like, this is a team that was, neck and neck with Jacoby Brissett last week. Like, it's not that I don't think the Chargers have no chance in this game. I mean, they're favorites according to FanDuel. I don't agree with that, but the Chargers will give themselves a chance. The Colts been a little bit different on the road than they've been at home, right? But they like I said, they almost have to play a flawless game. They have to hit on these keys here to give themselves a chance, because if you just get run over like you have, 3 weeks in a row, it's just not going to be close. Like, they're just going to control the ball. They're not going to give you the chances that you need, and you're going to be playing a style of offense that you're just not equipped to right now with the guys that you're missing. So really excited about it. The Chargers, through everything, could be the number 1 team in the AFC after this weekend, man. Like, to have that and potentially be getting guys like Joe Wall back eventually, or Trey Pipkins, even if they don't play in this game, that's huge. And for the Colts, it's just, continuing to further cement the fact that, no, this isn't just, a blip on the radar. Like, we're here, and not only are we here, we're for real. And I think this is just another step for them to show that they can do that. If they can beat a team who's undefeated in their conference, has taken down, the Chiefs and the Broncos and some of those teams already. So super excited for it. I do think it could be a close game, especially if the Chargers can hit on all these keys for sure. But I'm really hoping it's going to be a good game, because it's absolutely a big game. But thank you to the Everydayers for checking out today's show. We appreciate you. Any fan of the Locked On Chargers podcast, listening to me, Daniel Wade, and David Drogmeyer, or anyone who's listening to Locked On Colts with Zach Hicks as well and his co-host, we appreciate you guys. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers and Locked On Colts YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. You can also find the shows all day in all of our social media as well, so make sure you guys check that out. But super big game, super excited about it. Make sure you're back for the keys for success for Locked On Chargers and the Friday show for Locked On Colts. But until then, guys, it is your team every day.